care, lead, innovate, motivate, balance. These 5 tenets reveal ways of creating a more profitable and customer-centric pharmacy. What will you discover when you climb with RMS?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Climb. With me today, as always, is our Director of Operations and my co-host, Brandon Bolesky. Good morning, Brandon.
Good morning, Brad.
So we have a little bit of news today, folks. We've been doing Climb now for quite a few years, and it's been terrific, and you've all been wonderful. But as we've continued to grow Climb, we've seen our viewership in the live event fall off, but the people all of you are reviewing our content, and we've seen that expand. So we've actually decided, based on the numbers, that we're going to stop doing the live event. This is going to be our last live session. So Brandon, you're not going to see Brandon's face as much anymore. Sorry, Brandon. Yeah. But this is our last live session. But we are going to continue to come out with the same great content every single month. Those of you that have signed up, you're gonna receive the monthly email link so that you can go to the content directly. And of course, it's always posted through our website and on our YouTube channel. So we think we're actually probably going to increase some of our content and continue to reach out to you. So the content's not going away, just the live session of Climb is going away. Okay, so with that said, Brandon, let's talk about what we saw last month.
Yeah. So January's Climb was all about opportunities, challenges, and trends in the pharmacy industry. Dr. Lisa Foss shared her top recommendations for growing your pharmacy business and improving cash flow. She also shared some really important information on upcoming DIR fee changes. So if you missed any of that, you can check out the recordings on our website. Now, coming up today on After Climb, Brad will be showing us some information on credit card surcharges. Good info there, so stay tuned for that. But first, today we're going to be talking all about kiosks and self-service. So Brad, why don't you give us a little bit more on that one?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I met these guys at the Diversify RX conference that's put on by Dr. Lisa Foss. So met them, and I think they've got an amazing product, revolutionizing really. There's kiosks out there, but this is a different take. And so great for pharmacies of all kinds and sizes. And so I will bring them on in just a few minutes. It's Patrick Johnson and Dennis Kearney of Comco Systems. They're spearheading this new product into the United States marketplace. And you may not know that system or that name, Comco Systems, but they've been in the pharmacy industry for a very long time. They are the actual first company to put drive-through windows and pneumatic tubing systems into drive-through pharmacies. So anyway, they've been around for a while, and I think you're going to hear a lot more about them. So in just a moment, I'm going to put a screen up with their information, and then in just a moment, I'll be right back on with them. Well, good morning, Patrick. Morning, Dennis. Welcome to Climb, and thank you for joining us today.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. We appreciate it very much.
So this is really, I think, some exciting stuff. Bringing to pharmacy. I love it when we bring innovation to pharmacy, and today we're doing that. So many of our listeners are not going to really know who Comco Systems is, anything about you, but you've been in this space for a very, very long time. So Patrick, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do, and we'll skip what we're going to talk about with the kiosk stuff, but how have you been in pharmacy and how long?
Sure. Thank you, Brad. Comco Systems has been around since 1968. Harold Green started the company, and he started it out with an engineering background, looking at the transportation or the moving of something from point A to point B. In doing so, he developed, I think we had 7 or 11 patents on utilizing pneumatic tube systems to move product from A to B. In 2020, Comco took the idea of a pneumatic tube system to a large national chain pharmacy, sat down and actually designed one specifically for them. And since then, Comco has been able to grow their market share within the large national chain to 70% of their pharmacies nationwide. So that is thousands of lanes all over the 48 contiguous states. And obviously in that same process, we developed additional account relationships within the grocery for their pharmacy, within the independent pharmacy, and then the smaller pharmacies. So Comco may not be a readily known name, but I can guarantee you, if you see a pharmacy that has a drive-up pneumatic tube system or deal drawer, it is probably a Comco product.
Great. So drive-through and pneumatic tubing systems is how you got started. And
that is correct.
You know, and that's it. Of course, we see a lot of pharmacies, both chain and independent now, with drive-through windows. And that brings me to the thought of kind of the evolution of how all of these things have happened. So the COVID really took curbside to another level as well. And we've been heavily involved here at RMS with our customers with offering curbside solutions when they don't have drive-through or don't have drive-through capability. And so this is all, as you said, about delivering to patients. So we're also heavily involved in mail order and delivery solutions. But the one thing that these things, all of these solutions don't deal with is that patient that can't get to the pharmacy during normal business hours. If they're at home, we can deliver to them, but a lot of these people are at work. There are a lot of different reasons why a patient can't make it to the pharmacy. So this kiosk solution that we're about to talk about really fits that hole in this whole situation. So Dennis, let's talk a little bit about what you do, what your new offering is, and how it differs from, say, a self-checkout solution.
Sure. Well, PharmaSelf 24 is the name of our solution. It's designed to fit through the wall of a pharmacy or standalone, so we have some flexibility there. It allows the pharmacy staff and pharmacy owner to store completed orders of prescriptions waiting to be picked up on one side of the unit. On the other side, it offers patients the ability to pick up their completed prescriptions or completed orders at their convenience, depending on how the pharmacy wants to design it. We obviously help them in implementing those solutions and how they want to design it and where it goes in the pharmacy, but it's designed to, again, offer flexibility and a convenience to patients that they haven't been able to have, accessible to them before as it relates to prescriptions. If you think back to the migration of drive-through in pharmacy, where it all started. It started in the early 70s, where an independent pharmacy owner, entrepreneur decided to purchase an old bank building that had a drive-through, and he said, okay, well, why can't I use drive-through for medications? And there was some pushback then. There was a little bit of trepidation. They didn't want to make prescriptions like fast food drive-throughs. They didn't want that same concept. But you can see how that adoption has increased over time and moved on to, it's the norm now. You see drive-throughs in every pharmacy, and it wasn't until 20 years later that the large chains decided to do that. In the early 90s, they moved along with that as well. So now if you don't have a drive-through, you're either going to implement one or you physically can't put a drive-through in. So if you think about that migration, it's the same concept with kiosk technology and giving patients access to their medications at times that are convenient for them and giving them that flexibility. It's a value-added service now to be able to give your patient access to your medications when they have the ability to pick up. You think about some of the chains are closing an hour for lunch and staffing issues across the country, and I have some independent pharmacy owners that are having to reduce hours, or their Saturdays are already half a day, and sometimes they're looking at do I need to stay open that half a day? Well, what's the impact of that? The impact could be losing patients, and if you lose one prescription, you're likely to lose many for that one patient, and even a whole family in some cases. So, it's the ability to retain their existing business with the technology that we offer to give them the flexibility to offer this value-added service to their patients with PharmaSelf 24.
Sure. Well, the picture, I'm trying to get people the picture in their mind, but the way I pictured this, because when I looked at the pictures that you sent, this looks like a kind of an ATM machine on the outside of the pharmacy, right? And so kind of describe how this interaction works.
Yeah, so the process works like this. The prescription is filled just like it normally is in the pharmacy. And that order for that patient, whether it's one prescription or 10 prescriptions, they're all bagged and tagged, as they say, and put typically today into some type of will call system, whether it's a filing system or a hanging bag system, what have you. In this process with PharmaSelf 24, instead of putting it in that alphabetical system on a shelf, they're loaded into PharmaSelf 24 through an interface. Through their pharmacy management system that they currently have, and we interface with a lot of the major players today in the retail and independent world right now. And then what happens is that prescription order is then loaded into PharmaSelf 24 through a barcode scanning. Once that barcode is scanned, the machine or the robot actually comes and grabs that medication from the pharmacy staff. It's loaded into the machine. It's then put in a box to be held in a staging inside of the robot until the patient's ready to pick up. Once that completed order is put into the machine, a message is sent to the patient asking for payment for that prescription order. Once that payment is made, they receive a 6-digit PIN code to be able to pick up their prescription at their convenience. And then when they arrive at the pharmacy, they park in a designated area, walk up to the kiosk, input their 6-digit PIN code. A signature capture takes place at that time and an image of the patient, and then they're able to retrieve their meds in less than 60 seconds later.
That's terrific. So there's the payment solution. Let's talk just a little bit about that, because that's somewhat revolutionary as well. It's referred to as text to pay. So Correct. How does that work?
So text to pay, if you think about where technology is headed for everybody, not just patients, but everybody. You think about your banking, your investing, your healthcare, your lab results from your physicians, from your specialists. Everything is moving to mobile, right? So why not pharmacy? I've been in this industry for about 25 years with automation, and it seems like we're just a little bit behind in a lot of cases. And so this was one that I think by adding this additional feature, if you will, to PharmaSelf 24 with the text to pay, it affords the patient the ability to pay from the convenience of their home, their job, their vehicle. Whenever they get that link, they're able to pay via their mobile device. What more personalized service can you give a patient than sending it to their personal device, which is in their pocket 99% of the time, right? So now we give them the ability to pay for their prescriptions remotely via that text-to-pay solution. It saves time for the patient. It saves time for the staff and the pharmacy as well, and the headache of having to store credit cards or update expiration dates, or, the patient wants to change to a different card, or, what have you, method of payment. Now the patient can handle that themselves via their phone. They're doing it with everything else, from shopping and Amazon and paying bills and you name it. So why not do it for prescription orders as well? So I think that's going to be a huge, we've heard the term game changer from a lot of the pharmacies that we presented this to, for them being able to offer that out-of-the-box solution to introduce their patients to a text-to-pay option for their PharmaSelf 24 customers.
So, and going backwards just a second, you mentioned, so we talked about the ATM style on the outside. Mm-hmm. But if I understood you correctly, you also have a solution that could be inside the pharmacy or inside, like in many cases, we have a hospital hospitals that have that are open 24 hours a day, but the pharmacy's not. So you have a kiosk that actually can physically be loaded and be inside a building. Is that correct?
Yeah. So there's a lot of flexibility with PharmaSelf 24. We have a unit that actually can be standalone inside of as you stated, where there's a business or a building that's open extended hours, but the pharmacy isn't. So this could be, like you mentioned, in a medical office or complex or a hospital. It could be if you're in a local community that you have deliveries to a certain area that's where it's not convenient for patients to come to your pharmacy, but it doesn't make sense to put in brick and mortar. This might be an option for you to have a standalone unit of PharmaSelf 24 in some type of a grocery setting that doesn't have a pharmacy, where they have extended hours, and you could actually have it there. Or again, as an entrepreneur, you can kind of think outside the box and think, where could I put this in a local community to extend my business outside of the four walls of my pharmacy? So that's an option for pharmacists to be able to think that way as well. And so we do have the flexibility to have that solution where it is a standalone type unit.
Sure, and I was just thinking about some of our pharmacies specifically that are in hospitals, in the clinic settings where they're doing this, and both independent pharmacies and then some of the hospitals pharmacies themselves. But they have, this just really opens the door to a lot of different opportunities. So let's talk a little bit about retailers and pharmacies and specifically moving more and more to contactless modes of service for obvious and very different, or lots of different reasons. Let's talk about what a pharmacy needs to be thinking about when it comes to determining if kiosk is right for them. So what are some of those things? I know we hear a lot about staffing shortages and all these different things, but what are some of the things that you talk to when you're talking to pharmacies? Sure.
I think expanding their business in other areas. I mean, we're all trying to diversify, right? To bring in other areas of revenue for our businesses, and pharmacy is not, an exception to that. We're all trying to expand that and to offer additional value-added services to different types of patients. So the pharmacy owner that they have, if there are staffing issues or staffing concerns, where you feel like the counter is stacking up at certain times of the day or the week, where you'd like to maybe offer an additional method of picking up prescriptions to maybe reduce some of that traffic. You think about drive-through, let's talk about that again. Drive-throughs used to be a matter of convenience for patients, right? But there are times where it's become an inconvenience for patients in that you're pulling up to a drive-through and it might only be 2 cars deep or it might be 6 cars deep, but you don't know that Mrs. Jones, the car in front of you, has an insurance issue. So the pharmacy has a business decision to make. Hey, do I handle her insurance issue and make everyone else wait, or do I ask her to drive around and make it inconvenient for her because I need to work on that while I fill just a normal refill medication? I can just hand that to the next patient. But, again, it's a workflow and a business decision at that point. So it's those pharmacies that are seeing those kind of things. But then also, again, let's talk about, post-COVID where, you have reduction in hours because of staffing issues. So you're looking at, do I close early? Do I stay late? Do I come back and help deliver that medication for, Mrs. Johnson that I've always done and take time away from my family or what have you on a Saturday afternoon to offer that value? Now if I implement PharmaSelf 24, that's not such a big deal anymore. I can just tell them, hey, I'm going to send you a 6-digit PIN code and you can pick it up at your convenience. I know you're working till 7 and we close at 6, so you can pick it up at 8 o'clock or whenever is convenient for you. Same thing with on a Saturday. I hear that a lot. Hey, I'm always having to come back up. As the business owner, I do it to help my patients out. Again, if I lose one, I might lose their 5 or 6, and I might lose their entire family's prescription. So if I can offer that value-added service and now not have to be present for that, that would be another option for them. And again, that fast, quick pickup, we may not want to admit this, but patients their behaviors have changed tremendously with technology. But then 2020, COVID changed everything and really escalated that behavior change. Curbside was just for that period of time, we thought, but it's still going on. It's not just restaurants either, so it's really moved into other areas of business to include pharmacy. And, again, who's picking up prescriptions? A lot of times it's sick folks, they don't want to stand in line. They don't want to sit in their cars for a long period of time. Maybe they just want to park, go walk up, enter their code, and 60 seconds later walk away. The average time in a drive-through for food right now is 180 seconds. So you can't you can't beat that when you're talking about less than a minute for your prescriptions, and I guarantee it's going to take longer than 3 minutes in a lot of cases.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that really came to mind here too is in your urban settings where there's lots of people doing shift work. And so that to me it can be a game changer in those areas. So that,
and Brad, I'd just like to add, there are extreme parallels here to the financial industry or the banking industry when the ATMs came into play back in the 70s and 80s. The bankers expected that their customers had to come in and see their tellers and that they wouldn't use these devices. And if you fast forward to today, in many cases, the financial institutions don't want their customers to come in because they can offer an extensive set of transactions through these devices. And so I just see this paralleling the financial industry, the ATM, the ITM, and now you've got the PharmaSelf 24.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things I remember as being in this industry for a long time as well. I remember hearing about, oh, I don't want to drive through because I want the people to come in my store, see the things that are in here, and then they'll buy. They may go, oh, geez, I didn't even know you had this, and buy it. Those add-on sales. But as time has evolved, pharmacies have had to evolve as well. And I look back when I started this company 24 years ago in the South Seattle and the Olympia, Tumwater, Lacey area. There were 5 independent pharmacies, and they all were about 6,000 to 8,000 square foot front ends, carrying school supplies and toys and gifts and all of this stuff on top of OTCs and HBA items. And then 10 years later, there were none. There were all 5 were closed down. Today, though, we have 5 again. But this time around, these 5 pharmacies are all apothecaries, and they're doing all the clinical services and vaccinations and disease state management and all of these things. And it's not as imperative for the people to come in unless, so I think like everything, retail is changing, everything's changing, and you have to continue to adapt and evolve if you want to still exist as a company. I know that has been true for us. I'm sure it's true for you as well. So as business owners, we have to continue to adapt and change. And I think that's that concern about, yes, you really do like having a lot of customers come in, especially if you have large front ends, but that doesn't work for everybody, and not everybody needs to come in. Not everybody wants to come in, and sometimes you don't want them to come in. I mean, if a person coming in with their screaming baby, because that's the way things are, it might be nice that they walk up to the ATM style pickup and pick up, or you do the curbside. So this is just one more of those things. So it's exciting, I think, really exciting technology. So what are some of the considerations for pharmacies if they're looking at kiosks? What would make someone select one solution over another solution? And then let's talk a little bit about competition, because I know that there are kiosks out there, but I really haven't run across this ATM style kiosk.
Yeah, so this is the first of its kind to be able to install inside a wall, and it's designed to fit in the wall, where you have access to loading the machine on the inside of the pharmacy, and then the pickup and retrieval is on the exterior wall of the pharmacy. This is the first of its kind in that regard. And again, in today's market, I've been involved with a solution like this 15 years ago. It was way too early. Mindsets weren't there. Patients and consumers weren't to that point yet. But we have come a long way in the last 15 years in pharmacy and in technology as well, as you know. But as far as what differentiates us, again, is that flexibility of having either solution, whether it's inside the 4 walls or, again, built into the wall and accessible by the patients on the outside. That's really a huge piece, along with the text-to-pay feature, where those simple, easy pickups of refill medications that patients can pick up on their own and not have to have staff involvement. That's the calling card for PharmaSelf 24. And again, it's certain patients are already ready for that, and others will take some time to get across. So we're not saying you're going to move 100% of your business to a technology like this. It's going to be a migration, and right now it's the time to move forward with that, so that you can remain competitive and offer this value-added service before anyone else does. I mean, it's very new and very different.
Sure.
So we recognize there's going to be a little bit of pushback from certain patients, and that's okay. We'll still service them the same way in our community pharmacies, right? We'll still give them the handshake and the personalized service face-to-face, but some patients will look at that personalized service as what's good for me is that I can do it at my convenience when I'm able to pick up, and I don't need to have that walk all the way into the pharmacy to pick up. Some considerations to make would be, where would I put this? What makes the most sense in my pharmacy? That's where we come into play with our expertise at Comco, with pharmacy and drive-through and workflow, things like that, where we would come out on site and take a look at your pharmacy and kind of make some recommendations on where would be best to place the unit. A few things to consider is obviously loading the machine, closest to the pharmacy staff would be ideal. But even more so is where is it going to call out to pharmacy patients? Where is it visible to my parking lot? Or is there a main thoroughfare? Are you on a main street? Or are you in a downtown square area? It's a very unique look on the outside. It's lit up with LED lighting, and it's very distinctive. It's going to create some attention. So I would want it in an area that is going to be able to be visible by patients on the exterior business. And again, it can draw folks in and say, hey, what is this? I want to know more about it. So those are some of the things to consider, with regards to where to put it in the pharmacy and how it's going to fit best with workflow.
Yeah, and
again,
Brad,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Pat, go ahead.
Patrick.
I was just going to add that it has an element of safety and security that some of the locker type technology does not have, where you have to physically stand in front of the locker to load those devices. From a security standpoint, that means you're out in the open with all of those prescriptions. And if someone's watching you, they might have an idea of what's actually taking place. To look at the PharmaSelf 24 through the wall, you don't know what's on the backside. You don't know how it's being loaded. It gives that level of security that is very, very important, because that is an item of value, no different than cash in an ATM, and you want to do everything you can to protect it. And obviously, Comco is in the security business as well, and so we have recommendations from a security aspect. We've got recommendations from a standpoint of ensuring that these devices are installed in a highly lit manner, similar to the ATMs. So we're following a lot of the guidelines that are set up for ATMs throughout the country to ensure that these devices will act and feel just like an ATM.
Okay. So probably a lot of people are thinking, what do I have to figure all this out myself for getting this through the wall, the dimensions, the contractor? What parts do you help with, and what parts don't you help with?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things we decided early on was that we did not want to be in the construction business, and I'm sure pharmacies don't either. So what we ask is that they make a recommendation of a local contractor for us to connect with. We'll supply them with all of the needs. So all the dimensions, electrical requirements, power requirements, and those types of that type of information. And then we'll coordinate with them a timeline of when they're able to come in and basically cut the hole in the wall or glass, what have you, depending on the facade of the building. And then we'll coordinate when we bring the machine in, which will be right after that hole is completed. We'll slide the unit in, and we'll ask that contractor to do the finish work. And then the next day we'll come in and do the training and in-service and show them how the machine operates. And so we work with their local contractor, whether it's a family member, a friend, or a trusted contractor, or someone local to that community. And then our team of experts will come in and work with that team and with the pharmacy team to work on the implementation piece of the actual machine. So,
gotcha. Okay, that sounds easy, which was important, right? So
yeah, there you go.
So one thing that struck me when you were talking about the system and then the text debate piece, I'm sure every retailer can relate to having to replace these payment application devices, signature capture devices, every 3 to 4 years because of the built-in obsolescence at $800 to $1,200 a lane. But this PharmaSelf 24 doesn't do that. So PharmaSelf 24 is using text to pay. I guess I'm just editorializing here, but that's quite a savings. I mean, having to do this with a unit like that would be really difficult and expensive. So to me, that's a big savings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talk about the cost savings, the time savings, the headache of those devices, having to fool with those. But then, and that's for the staff and the pharmacy owner, right? But then you think about the patient. What's the concept behind automation is to save time, to be more efficient, right? If we added another step for the patient to have to worry about pulling out a card or even cash in some cases, maybe on a POS device on the end of the unit, that's giving them more time out in the elements. We want them to be able to walk up, pick up their prescriptions as fast and efficient and accurately as possible. And so to remove that, step in the process was a big deal for patients. But then again, like you mentioned, the technology and the cost to the pharmacy to take that out of the equation as well. I mean, I think, again, we've used the term, and it's only because we've heard it from other pharmacy owners, a game changer. I do believe the text to pay adds an additional layer of game changing to the PharmaSelf 24 for sure.
And I'd also like to note, Brad, as well, we partnered with a highly reputable company from within the industry that knows this business as it relates to POS. And they have many customers all over the country. They are very well respected. We thought that was very important in order to get this interface built. So working with a company like RMS has allowed us to get our PharmaSelf 24 ready for the market faster than we ever could have done it piece by piece. So rest assured, folks, that this kiosk is ready to go when you're ready to go.
Yeah, and Brad, you also mentioned the word simple. And when I think about simple, I think about, their current merchant processing account and their current merchant processor. None of that changes. So it's a very simple way to implement this technology in the text-to-pay solution as well.
Great. And, in that, I think that is what I was kind of driving at too with the question was, what are some of those things you should be looking at if you're comparing it to, any competition out there? And while right now this is the first of its kind for the through the wall, but that interior solution, there is some competition to that. And so those are some of the things I think people should be looking at, as you mentioned. So, but one of the things that you also talked about, and we didn't delve into, but I'd like to delve into now, is consumer buy-in, patient buy-in. And I think there's some education here, a room for education. So what do you do to help the pharmacies with that piece of it?
So we can do this many different ways. So we have ideas, and we have experience in, I guess, bringing new technologies to the market. So in a pharmacy setting, you have a patient that comes in for their first dose, if you will. That's a great opportunity to start talking to them about where and how they'd like to pick up their refills, whether they like to come into the store, whether you're going to be mail ordering, whether there's going to be delivery, or whether they'd like to choose the PharmaSelf 24 to pick it up at their convenience. Some of those patients, you're going to know right off the bat, this is a great candidate for that solution. And in some of that consultative role, this might be that time to do that, along with a flyer, what have you, marketing capabilities. We will help you design and put out any type of marketing, whether it's through your Facebook or your social media, through hard copy, whether it's putting in a bag stuffer, if you will, as simple as those things. Or again, those in-services that you have the ability as you're having that face-to-face interaction, whether it's through the drive-through or the counter, to be able to introduce them to PharmaSelf 24. And a great way to do that is to help them with that first dose, walk them to the outside and show them how it works that first time. And then, getting that adoption rate increase. There's going to be a certain percentage of your patients they're going to want to jump to PharmaCell 24 and start using it immediately. And there's others that you're going to need to, hold their hand a little bit to introduce them to it and, and to increase that adoption rate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it really comes from a standpoint of you're going from where you have to wait on your patients 100% of the time. When you develop this technology and implement it, it might be at the beginning some assisted self-service, as Dennis just said, walk them to the terminal, make a big deal out of that, and eventually it becomes self-service on their own. So it is a step process. It's something that we have experience in, that I personally have experience in, and we look forward to sharing those experiences. And every independent pharmacy and every chain will do it different. But what's exciting is you can get creative along the way and create some really great interest, and you will get your patients very excited about you providing them with something that they need, they want, but you don't have.
Terrific. Well, gentlemen, I think we're pretty close to the end. I know your time's valuable, and I don't want to make this too long for the people that are listening, because their time is at a premium as well. So do you have any last things to talk about that I didn't cover that you want to add at this point?
I would just say that if we think back to the history of the drive-through and other technologies to make it easier and more efficient for patients, there's a time period of adoption. There's a time period of transition. We've gone through some of that already with technology and with patient behavior, and now it's time to start putting some of these technologies into practice. And you can be first, and you can be an early adopter, and you can be the one to market to bring that to your patients and attract new business and retain those patients that are having challenges getting to the pharmacy. Or you can watch the others move forward, and we'll move forward with you and with PharmaCell 24 in the years to come. But I think it's something that is coming to the market. It's going to come fast, just like drive-through did. And there will be a moment where we'll look back and say, wow, can we believe that we did this without PharmaCell 24? And I'm looking forward to meeting all of the pharmacies out there and helping them come up with this solution and implementing it in their pharmacies for their staff, for their business, and for their patients.
Terrific. Patrick, anything else?
Brad, I would like to say thank you for allowing us to be a part of Climb, and we look forward to working with you into the future. And if there's anything we can do, I'm sure you'll have our contact information there for any of the folks out there listening, and Absolutely. We look forward to meeting them as well. Thank you for all of this. This is great.
Yeah, you're very welcome, and you're right. We will have a slide up that gives all your contact information. And so let me ask one last question really quick. Where will they find you? What a couple of conferences that are upcoming?
That's a great.
Trade show season around the corner.
Yeah, that's a great. Put me on the spot here. Hold on just a second.
Sorry. That's fine. We can just give them your website and go.
Yeah, so comcosystems.com, obviously, or PharmaCell24.us. Those are the two sites right now. We're under the process of revamping our Comco Systems website, so stay tuned for that as well. But those are the two ways that you can see the technology in action.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you both very much for your time. I appreciate it. And I look forward to having you back on Climb down the road.
Sounds great. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brad.
Have you settled for a limited bundled-in POS because you aren't sure what's compatible with your pharmacy management system? At RMS, we've developed a revolutionary integration portal, and our state-of-the-art POS solutions integrate with over 30 pharmacy management systems. Unlock the door to powerful, cutting-edge point-of-sale functionality, no matter which pharmacy management system you want to use. At RMS, the choice is always yours.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. Shortly, Karen will be sending out a Climb newsletter email, so keep an eye open for that. And as always, please feel free to share the content. Share the video, share the podcast. You can find that information on our website or on the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
Yeah, please share the videos. We love that people are doing that, and we have a lot of viewers seeing our content, so we're excited to keep producing the content. Sorry if you were excited about coming to our live event, but you'll still get all the content. And I'll be right back with After Climb. Thanks, everybody. Welcome to After Climb. So today I would normally be talking about or doing a deep dive into some piece of our product, but I was recently on site at one of our customer sites, and I found that they were doing credit card surcharges, and they weren't doing them the way that they're required to be done. So I thought I would do a quick presentation for those of you who are doing credit card surcharges or thinking about doing credit card surcharges. There are some things you need to know. So let's go to the first slide here. So first of all, let's talk about something that's upcoming. Visa has announced that they'll be performing in-person audits to ensure that you're in compliance when you're doing surcharge fees or minimum transactions amounts. And that started in January. So they're going to be sending people to stores all across America to see if you're following the rules. First, one of the rules that we want to talk about is minimum transaction amount. So you can do this. If you can do this where you require a certain amount before they can charge a credit card. The requirement, though, is that it cannot be more than $10. So that's the minimum transaction amount. It can't exceed $10. On top of that, and this is really important, this does not apply to debit cards. So you cannot charge a minimum transaction amount if somebody's using a debit card, regardless of whether or not they put in their PIN number. And then finally, we get to surcharges, and the next slide, I'm going to actually talk in detail about surcharges. But I want to bring this next one, non-compliance fees. So, as I said, Visa's coming to town, maybe to a town near you, maybe to you. And if they find you in violation, the first is a warning, or the first is a warning letter. The second violation is a $5,000 fine, and the third violation is a $25,000 fine. And of course, they can also find you in non-compliance with your agreement, and eventually it could even take away your right to process credit cards. So be very, very careful and aware. Now let's talk about some surcharge rules. First of all, if you are in Massachusetts or Connecticut, your legislature has made that illegal. So you cannot charge credit card surcharges in Massachusetts or Connecticut. So if you are in one of those states, you don't even need to listen to the rest of this. Second, if you are wanting to do this, you must notify Visa and MasterCard at least 30 days prior to beginning your surcharge. You can go to their websites, and I've posted, of course, you can just go to visa.com or mastercard.com, but on the next slide, I'll post a little bit more detail of where to go. Then fill out the form to notify them. If you're considering doing this, you can go no higher than your average discount rate or 4%. Whichever is lower. So if your credit card fees are more than 4%, you are getting ripped off and you need to change credit card processors. So most of you, or hopefully all of you, would be at a lower rate than that. But if you're at 2.5%, you can't charge 3. You can't charge more than your average discount rate. And you have to keep reviewing that to ensure that you don't do that. So something you have to stay on top of as well. Another thing is that it can't be added to a debit card, regardless of how the debit card is processed. So if it says debit card on there, even if they don't enter their PIN number and they process it just like a credit card, if you charge a surcharge, you're in violation of the rules. So this means that if you're doing this surcharge, you have to have your employee ask them to show the card and verify that it is not a debit card. And a debit card will say debit card right under the Visa or MasterCard logo. And then you also must disclose this to customers via signage at the POS, and it has to be on the receipt. Now, these are just a few of the rules. The rules, there are more rules, but these are the big ones, the big gotchas. It has to be on the receipt, and then in some cases, this information actually has to go all the way to MasterCard and or Visa. So with all of this said, be very careful. And if you are really considering doing this, then you need to read your agreement with both Visa and MasterCard to see what their rules are, and go to their website and verify what you can and can't do. So with that said, here are the websites. This will, you can take it from here. We are going to be sending out an email to all of our merchants talking about these rules, showing my video, but then also giving some more content and some specific pages on both Visa and MasterCard's website to assist you. But I wanted to get this out there because I know people are doing it, and I'm aware that Visa, at least Visa, is going to start cracking down for those people that aren't following the rules. So this was a quick one. Thank you, as always, for joining After Climb, and we'll see you next month.